Imagine spending 12 years of your life chasing one moment. 12 years of sacrifice, of near misses, of politics, crashes, and heartbreak. And on the final lap of the final race of the season, you're about to do it. You're about to make history. Lewis Hamilton was leading the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. He was 1.1 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen. His tires were old. His car was fast. His 8th World Championship was right there. And then, 5 words changed Formula One forever. Lap cars do not have to unlap themselves. What happened next, in those final 5 laps, is still one of the most argued, most emotional, most painful moments in motorsport history. This is the story of the night Formula One broke the internet. To understand what happened in Abu Dhabi, you have to understand what the entire 2021 season felt like. Because this wasn't just a race. This was the culmination of the most intense Formula One season in modern history. On one side, Lewis Hamilton, a 7-time world champion, a man who had dominated the sport for nearly a decade. Mercedes' greatest weapon. On the other, Max Verstappen, young, fearless, and hungry. A driver who had been waiting his whole career for a car good enough to fight for a title. And in 2021, Red Bull finally gave him one. From the very first race in Bahrain, these two were at each other's throats. They clashed in Imola. They touched at Copse Corner in Silverstone. A crash that sent Verstappen into the barriers at 180 miles per hour and sent shockwaves through the paddock. They tangled at Monza, 2 cars becoming one in the gravel trap, a Red Bull landing on top of a Mercedes. By the time they arrived in Abu Dhabi for the season finale, it was dead level. 369.5 points each. It had never happened before in the history of the sport. 2 drivers arriving at the final race level on points. Winner takes all. One race. Race day. Yes, Marina Circuit. December 12th, 2021. The atmosphere was electric. Thousands of fans packed the grandstands. Millions more watching around the world. This was the biggest Formula One moment in years. The lights went out. And within seconds, Verstappen made his move. He went around the outside of Hamilton at turn 1, side by side, both cars sliding wide. Hamilton kept his position, just barely. But that early battle set the tone for what was coming. For the first half of the race, Hamilton was in control. His pace was strong. He built a gap. He managed his tires brilliantly. Verstappen pitted. Hamilton pitted. Everything was going to plan. And then, lap 36. Nicholas Latifi crashed his Williams into the barrier. A safety car was deployed, and in that single moment, everything changed. When Latifi crashed, Hamilton was leading by around 11 seconds. Verstappen was in second. The key detail, the critical detail, was the tires. Hamilton was on old, worn hard tires. He hadn't pitted for fresh rubber because he was protecting his lead. Under normal racing conditions, that was the right call. But Verstappen? Red Bull brought him in immediately under the safety car. Fresh soft tires. Maximum grip. Maximum speed. Hamilton's team were faced with a brutal choice. Pit and lose the lead, or stay out and hope the race restarts don't go wrong. They stayed out. Hamilton was still ahead. But his tires were over 20 laps older than Verstappen's. Now, here's where it gets complicated. Between Hamilton and Verstappen on the track, there were 5 lap cars. Cars that had been passed during the race and were now sitting in between the 2 title contenders. Under the rules, lap cars can be told to unlap themselves, to drive past the safety car and get out of the way so they don't interfere with the restart. Race director Michael Massey had a decision to make. First, Massey announced that the lap cars would not be allowed to unlap themselves. The Mercedes pit wall breathed a sigh of relief. If the lap cars stayed where they would act as a buffer between Hamilton and Verstappen at the restart. Hamilton's lead was protected. But then, just minutes later, a second message came over the radio. Lap cars do not have to unlap themselves. Wait. Then, lap cars between Hamilton and Verstappen will be allowed to pass. Not all lap cars. Just the ones between the 2 title contenders. 5 cars, wave past, clearing the road ahead of Verstappen. Hamilton's buffer gone. His tire advantage gone. One lap remaining. Verstappen was right behind him on fresher, faster tires. The safety car came in. The race was on. One lap. Hamilton, in his silver Mercedes, fighting for his 8th championship. Verstappen, in his Red Bull, on tires built for exactly this moment. Turn 5. Verstappen dived to the inside. Hamilton defended, side by side. And then, turn 9, Max was through. Max Verstappen overtook Lewis Hamilton. He crossed the line. He was world champion. The Red Bull garage exploded. Christian Horner was screaming. Jos Verstappen was in tears. Max couldn't form words. And in the Mercedes garage, silence. Lewis Hamilton didn't speak for a long time. His engineer, Peter Bonington, came on the radio. "Lewis, I'm so sorry." Hamilton said nothing. That silence said everything. Within minutes, the internet caught fire. Because people had been watching, and people had seen what happened. Mercedes lodged 2 protests immediately. One about Verstappen's overtake. One about the safety car procedure. Both were rejected by the stewards that night. But the debate wasn't over. Not even close. The argument came down to one critical point. What Massey regulation stated that once a message is sent saying lap cars will not unlap, the safety car would come in at the end of that lap. Massey's mid-message reversal, selectively letting only some lapped cars through with just 1 lap to go, had never been done before. Not like this. It was a sporting decision that decided a world championship. Was it legal? Technically, race directors do have significant discretionary power. Was it fair? That is the question that still has no clean answer. Hamilton's fans were furious. They felt their driver had been robbed. Statistically, by the time the safety car intervention happened, Hamilton had the championship in his hands. Verstappen's fans celebrated. Their driver was faster that day. He'd earned his chance and taken it brilliantly. Both things can be true at the same time. Mercedes initially threatened to take the matter to the court of arbitration for sport. They didn't. Toto Wolff, Mercedes team principal, called it the darkest day of his career. He said he felt the championship had been manipulated. Massey was later removed from his position as race director. The FIA acknowledged that the safety car procedure had not been followed correctly. A new system of race directors was introduced. But the championship? It stayed with Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. The man who had been 1.1 seconds away from becoming the greatest Formula One driver of all time by the most undeniable of measures, went silent. For months, Hamilton barely appeared in public. He didn't attend the FIA prize-giving ceremony. He went quiet on social media. There were real conversations about whether he might retire from the sport. He came back in 2022. He didn't win the championship. He hasn't won one since. So why are we still talking about Abu Dhabi 2021? Because sport is supposed to be about what happens. We can accept being outdriven. We can accept a bad strategy call or a mechanical failure or a piece of bad luck. What's harder to accept is when the rules themselves feel uncertain. When the people in charge of protecting the competition make a call that, even if it was within their power, felt like it changed the natural outcome of the race. Hamilton didn't crash. He didn't make a mistake. He was leading. Verstappen didn't cheat. He drove brilliantly. He took the moment when it was given to him. And that's what makes Abu Dhabi so painful, so complicated, and so impossible to let go of. There's no villain here. There's no clean answer. There's just a moment that happened. That changed everything. In a sport that is still, in some ways, dealing with the aftermath. Formula One has had controversial moments before. Senna and Prost. Schumacher in Adelaide. Crashgate. But 2021 Abu Dhabi is different because it happened in the era of social media. In the era of replays and slow motion and clips and reactions available to everyone within minutes. Millions of people watched it happen in real time. And millions of people formed an opinion in real time. And the conversation, years later, is still going. So I want to know what you think. Do you believe Max Verstappen deserved the 2021 World Championship? Or do you believe Lewis Hamilton was robbed? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to hear from you. If you're new here, welcome to SportsPaw. We cover football and Formula One with the kind of depth and passion that this sport deserves. Subscribe if you want more videos like this. Leave a like if you made it this far. It honestly means the world for a channel that's just getting started. I'll see you in the next one.